Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I am General Naravane and I shall be talking to you today about two front wars. India is in a unique position and challenging position at that, since it faces two belligerent nuclear-armed neighbors with Pakistan to the west and with China to the north. India has fought wars with both these countries and is very conscious of the fact of a collusive partnership that can happen between these two. However, it is crucial to recognize that there is a vast difference between preparing for a two-front threat and actually fighting a two-front war. And what happens is that these terms are used very interchangeably due to a lack of understanding, further adding to the confusion. Preparing for a two-front threat would involve structuring your forces accordingly. And we have to prepare for a threat on our western borders with Pakistan. Obviously, there would be more mechanized forces which are capable of rapid movement. On the other hand, for the northern front, which are more mountainous, there would be more infantry formations. Even the artillery support for the western and northern front would be different, as would be the combat support elements and the administrative elements which support any army. The doctrines and the manner of operating on these two fronts would also be different. There would be rapid, deep thrusts on the western front in the plains of the Punjab and the deserts of Rajasthan, whereas in the north, it would be more dogged, time-consuming infantry assaults. Even the training that is required for fighting on these two fronts would differ. So as I said, preparing for a two-front threat is quite different from actually fighting a two-front war. And we should not fall into this trap of fighting a two-front war out of a false sense of bravado or out of a gung-ho attitude. Looking at it from a purely military point of view, at the operational level, or national point of view, at the strategic level, it boils down to whether is a country or a force is operating on interior or exterior lines of communication. If a force or an army draws its strength from the base, and then you're actually fighting the war distance away from the base, the line joining the base to where the fight is actually going on are divergent, then that force is on interior lines of communication. Conversely, if the lines joining the base or bases from where the army is operating are converging, then that force is operating on exterior lines of communication. When the force is operating on interior lines which are divergent, then as operations progress, obviously these forces are moving further and further away from each other and cannot concentrate at one point. On the other hand, forces which are on external lines, as the operations progress, are coming closer to each other and therefore are able to bring more combat power to bear at the point of decision. And that the ability to bring more combat power at the point of decision, concentration of force, is a key principle of war. In the example of the Bangladesh War of Liberation, where India was operating on exterior lines and all our thrusts were converging towards Dhaka, is a prime example of how forces of operating on exterior lines of communication have defeated an equal enemy operating on interior lines. This tenet of convergence applies at all levels, at the operational and tactical level too. At the operational level, envelopment maneuvers, whether single envelopment or double envelopment, all aimed to achieve the same thing, of how to come on from outside to inside and attack the enemy. And the German pincer movements, double envelopment, were a classic example of this. This is equally true at the tactical level, where the effort is always to attack the objective from more than one direction thereby making the enemy look in two directions at the same time. Even infiltrating a force behind the enemy, either by land or through airborne operations, seeks to achieve the same aim, that is, to come from outside to inside and make the enemy fight on two fronts at the same time. 9 out of 10 times, the force operating on exterior lines of communication will prevail and emerge victorious. I would like to compare this to a boxer in a boxing ring, with one boxer fighting two opponents at the same time. I think you all will all agree with me that given adequate time, two will always prevail over one. Zooming out, India is like that boxer in the ring, facing two major opponents. And as a country, we need to deal with both these threats and prepare to deal with both these threats at the same time. But for this, we shall have to exploit all the instruments of national power, diplomacy, information, military and economic, the dime paradigm, to make sure that through these means we keep one of the adversaries out of the fray. And at any one point of time, while we are prepared to fight, preparing for a two-front threat, we actually fight only on one front at one time. A clear example of this is how, prior to the 1971 war, India had gone into the Indo-Soviet Peace Treaty, Indo-Soviet Treaty of Peace, Friendship and Cooperation in August 1971, which effectively took China out of the equation. This goes to show that while India was conscious of the fact that we face a two-front threat, it was equally conscious of the fact that fighting a two-front war was not pragmatic. Even with China out of the contention, India did fight on two fronts, the Western Front with West Pakistan and the Eastern Front with East Pakistan. But although these were two fronts, it was against a single country, a single army, which had its finite resources. In a similar vein, Germany had entered into what is known as the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact in August 1939, just a few days before it launched its attack on Poland on 1st September 1939. By doing so, it ensured that it was fighting only on one front, that is the Western Front towards Europe, and kept Russia out of the equation. However, Germany made the cardinal error of launching Op Barbarossa in June 1941 without actually having fully subdued the Western Front. Since the Western Front was still active, the Allied forces were able to launch Operation Overlord, the Allied landings in Normandy, France in 1944, thereby opening a second front. When that happened, Germany was forced to fight on two different fronts, the Western with Europe and the Eastern with Russia, not to mention the Southern Front through Italy. It was this cardinal error that Germany made that led to their ultimate defeat in World War II. History is replete with such examples where forces operating on exterior lines have defeated those operating on interior lines. That does not mean to say that forces on interior lines have never won or have never been victorious, but the causes for that lie elsewhere. These battles are the 1 out of 10, the exceptions that prove the rule. At the level of grand strategy, it makes no sense to fight a two-front war, whether for India or for any other country for that matter. You can also read my column and ThePrint.